This can't be real, Dad, I whispered, my voice shaking as I gazed at him from across his enormous mahogany workspace. My father reclined in his leather seat, maintaining his usual calm demeanor, and released a long breath. Catherine, this matter is not open for debate, he stated, placing a cigar in the ash holder as if our conversation had already concluded. My hands formed tight fists, but I wouldn't retreat. So that's your final decision? I demanded, my tone cutting. You'd prefer to give everything to Grant, someone completely indifferent, rather than allow me to demonstrate my worth, simply because of my gender? He remained unmoved. Catherine, this company belongs to your brother, he declared with finality. You've excelled academically and will become an excellent spouse someday, but this isn't where you belong. I am Catherine Mercer, 26 years old, a Harvard Law graduate and Henry Mercer's daughter. He owns Mercer and Associates, among Dallas's most influential law practices. My existence has centered on validation, achieving academic excellence, winning debates, graduating with distinction, all to walk in my father's path. Yet there I stood in his study, surrounded by leather and tobacco aromas, feeling my reality crumble. My efforts, my passion for law, none of it mattered. To him, I remained merely his daughter, expected to marry advantageously and remain invisible. I locked eyes with him, my voice now steadier. Grant has no interest in this company, Dad. He's careless, barely managed community college, and lacks business acumen. You're aware of this as much as I am. My father exhaled, massaging his temples as though I were being irrational. Grant will develop his skills. He's my son, Catherine. Taking over Mercer and Associates is his inheritance. He paused, his tone slightly gentler. You have alternative paths, a future without the burden of managing a firm. I'm safeguarding you. A harsh laugh escaped me. Safeguarding me? I repeated, shaking my head. You're not protecting me, Dad. You're restraining me. I've earned this position. I've outworked everyone, including Grant, and you know it. Yet you refuse to consider me because you're too set in your traditional views to recognize my capabilities. His expression hardened. I had overstepped. That's sufficient, Catherine, he snapped. This discussion is over. I stormed from his study, my heels echoing through the marble corridors of our family mansion. My mother sat in the parlor, quietly arranging blooms in a container. She glanced up as I passed, her face gentle but weary. Catherine, she said softly, what occurred? I halted, turning toward her with mixed frustration and desperation. He's refusing me a position at the firm, I said, my voice cracking. He's transferring everything to Grant and expects my silent acceptance. She sighed, her hands pausing over the flowers. Your father has his methods, she said hesitantly. Perhaps it's wise not to challenge him, dear. His intentions are good. Shocked. Good intentions? I echoed. Mom, he's discarding everything I've accomplished because I'm female. How can you defend that? She averted her gaze, and I recognized years of quiet surrender written across her features. I simply don't want you hurt, Catherine, she whispered. Sometimes acceptance is easier. Her words lingered, and I understood then that I stood alone. That evening, lying in bed and staring upward, my father's words weighed heavily on me. I reflected on my journey. Late nights studying case law, endless Harvard debates, sacrifices made to honor the Mercer reputation. For what purpose? To be told I didn't belong, that my sole worth lay in marrying into another powerful dynasty. The notion sickened me. The following morning, I was partially packed when my bedroom door creaked open. My mother appeared, pale and bewildered. Catherine, what are you doing? She asked, worry evident in her voice. Before I could respond, my father emerged behind her, his brow furrowed with irritation. What's this about? He demanded, entering the room. Where do you think you're heading? Grant appeared last, casually leaning against the doorframe in his robe. Packing for a trip, sis? He asked with a sneer. I closed my suitcase and stood tall, facing them all. I'm departing, I stated simply. Since I'm unwelcome at the firm and clearly don't fit your family's expectations, I'll seek a place where I do. My father's expression darkened, while my mother clutched her pearls, appearing ready to weep. Catherine, she pleaded, don't do this. Let's discuss it. But I shook my head, my determination unwavering. There's nothing to discuss. You've all revealed your priorities clearly. My father's jaw clenched as he stepped closer. Don't be absurd, Catherine, he said coldly and dismissively. This is your home. Where else would you go, and for what purpose? To prove some point. I met his stare unflinchingly. Yes, Dad, I said firmly. To prove I'm worth more than being sidelined for someone who hasn't earned anything. You made it clear last night that I have no place in your firm, so I'll find one that appreciates my contributions. Grant chuckled softly, shaking his head. You're really overreacting, Kat, he said, crossing his arms. You're having a tantrum because Dad isn't giving you the company keys. His arrogant tone pushed me beyond my limit. This isn't a tantrum, Grant, I snapped. This is me seizing control of my life, something you've never needed to do because everything's been given to you. My father raised his hand, silencing us both. Enough, he said sternly. Catherine, you're not leaving. You belong here with your family. I shook my head, grasping my suitcase.
No, Dad.
I belong somewhere I'm valued, and clearly, that's not here. I walked past them, my luggage rolling behind me as I descended the grand staircase. My mother followed, her voice trembling. Catherine, please stay, she said softly. We can resolve this as a family. I stopped at the stairs base and turned to look at her, the woman who had spent her life suppressing her voice to maintain peace. Mom, I said gently, I love you, but I can't continue pretending things will change if I remain. They won't. My father stood atop the stairs, watching silently, his expression unreadable. Grant leaned against the railing, clearly unbothered, as if my departure meant nothing. I opened the front door and turned back one final time. When you're prepared to treat me as more than just a daughter expected to marry well, you know how to reach me, I said, my voice calm but resolute. Then I walked out, the crisp morning air touching my face as I closed the door behind me. For the first time in my life, I felt genuinely liberated. I didn't look back. After leaving that house, within days I secured an interview at one of Dallas's most respected law firms. They cared nothing about my being a mercer, only my qualifications and determination mattered. When I entered that office, I wasn't Henry Mercer's daughter. I was Catherine Mercer, Harvard graduate and determined attorney. By week's end, they offered me a position, and for the first time, I felt I belonged somewhere for my abilities, not my identity. The work proved challenging yet fulfilling, and I flourished in an environment where I wasn't constantly measured against someone else. My new supervisor, a sharp and progressive man named Richard Hayes, mentored me. He valued my perspective and encouraged greater responsibility. Within months, I was managing prominent cases and gaining my colleagues' respect. This wasn't the life I had imagined growing up, but it was mine, and that made all the difference. While I thrived professionally, evenings were more difficult. Severing family ties wasn't simple, regardless of justification. There were quiet moments, returning to an empty apartment after long days, when the weight would strike me. I missed my mother's gentle presence, even though she never defended me. I even missed the chaos Grant brought, despite his infuriating nature. But what hurt most was knowing my father didn't hesitate to let me go. Months passed, and I invested everything in my work. The cases were demanding, often keeping me at the office until late, but I thrived under pressure. With each victory, my confidence increased. I wasn't merely a lawyer anymore. I was a formidable force. Richard Hayes began assigning me higher-stakes cases, and soon I gained recognition as one of the firm's rising stars. The growth wasn't solely professional, it was personal too. I learned independence, making decisions without worrying about pleasing my father or fitting their mold. Every advancement felt like proof that I exceeded their expectations. I wasn't just Henry Mercer's daughter. I was Catherine Mercer, building my reputation on my own terms. One afternoon, Richard called me to his office. It was spacious yet unpretentious, reflecting the man himself. He gestured for me to sit and leaned back, his sharp blue eyes studying me carefully. "Catherine," he began, his tone measured, "I have a case I believe you're ready for. It's high stakes, complex, and will put you in the spotlight." I nodded with interest. "What's the case?" I asked, leaning forward slightly. He hesitated momentarily, then continued. "We're representing a client in major litigation against Mercer and Associates. They're suing your father's firm for negligence in a contract dispute. The stakes are enormous, and the case is attracting attention." He paused, watching my reaction closely. The word struck me like a physical blow. My stomach tightened, and momentarily I couldn't speak. "You want me to represent someone suing my father's firm?" I finally said, my voice steadier than I felt. Richard nodded. "I know it's personal, Catherine, but that's precisely why I want you on this. You understand how Mercer and Associates functions, and you're among our sharpest lawyers. If anyone can win this case, it's you." I took a deep breath, trying to process his request. "Richard," I said slowly, "you understand what this could mean for me personally and professionally? This isn't just another case, it's my family." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "I understand that," he said firmly. "But this is your opportunity to demonstrate your capabilities, to challenge those who underestimated you and prove them wrong. Think about it, Catherine. This could be your career's defining case." I settled back in the chair, the offer's weight pressing heavily on my shoulders. "This is overwhelming," I said, my voice quieter now. Richard nodded understandingly. "I don't expect an immediate decision. It's a significant request, Catherine, and I know how personal this is for you." I met his gaze, grateful for his patience. "Would it be acceptable if I sleep on it?" I asked, my tone more measured. I need to consider how this could affect everything, not just my career, but... I trailed off, uncertain how to finish. "Take all the time you need," Richard said steadily. "But don't take too long. We need to move quickly on this, and I want you on the team. Let me know by tomorrow's end." That night, sleep eluded me. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with everything at stake. Taking the case meant confronting my father, the man who had dismissed me and given everything to Grant without consideration. It also meant challenging my family's legacy, the name that had opened many doors while closing others. But it also meant proving once and for all that I could stand independently, even if it meant destroying the last bridge to my family. For 2 days, I weighed the risks and rewards. I thought about my father's cold dismissal of my achievements, my mother's quiet resignation, and Grant's smug entitlement. But I also considered the chance to show everyone, that I wasn't just Henry Mercer's daughter. By the second day's end, I had decided. I entered Richard's office the next morning, my shoulders square and voice steady. "I'll take the case," I said simply. His face brightened with approval. "I knew you would," he said, grinning. "Now let's begin." The first litigation proceeding day arrived, and tension filled the air. As I entered the courtroom, I gripped my briefcase tightly, my heels clicking against the polished floor with each step. My client walked beside me, confident in my abilities, but all I could think about was the inevitable moment approaching. As I neared the courtroom's front, I saw them, my father and Grant seated at the opposing table, their faces turning toward me. When our eyes met, I felt their shock hit like a tsunami. My father's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing with recognition. Grant's mouth dropped slightly before he quickly masked his surprise with a smug smirk, though I detected unease in his expression. I placed my briefcase on the table and met their stares directly. I wouldn't look away or falter. I was here to do a job, and nothing, not their surprise, not their disapproval, would shake me. Briefly, my father's gaze softened, but he quickly composed himself, leaning over to whisper something to Grant. I didn't care about his words. I was prepared. As proceedings began, I transitioned seamlessly into my role. Every motion, argument, and document I presented was executed with precision. I maintained calm composure, my demeanor collected, focusing solely on the case. When the judge addressed me, I responded confidently, never wavering under my father's presence or Grant's smug glances. I wasn't Catherine the daughter or sister in that room. I was Catherine Mercer, attorney for the plaintiff, and I intended to prevail. Even when Grant fumbled through his arguments, clearly unprepared, I didn't let it show. I treated him as I would any opposing counsel, with respect but zero mercy. Every time he misspoke or misrepresented facts, I countered with clarity, supporting my points with solid evidence and case law. My father sat quietly throughout most of it, his expression unreadable, but I felt his eyes on me. It didn't matter. I wasn't there for his approval anymore. I was there to do my job, and I was excelling. After several sessions, it became painfully obvious to my father and Grant that I was dominating the case. Every argument Grant presented crumbled under my counterpoints. His inexperience was glaring, and my preparation left him scrambling for non-existent answers. My father attempted to intervene once or twice, but even he couldn't salvage Grant's damage. The tide was turning rapidly, and everyone knew it. By the fourth session, their side proposed a settlement. I could see frustration etched into my father's face as their counsel approached mine with terms. After some back-and-forth adjustments, we agreed to a resolution heavily favoring my client. As paperwork was signed, I caught my father glancing at me from across the room. He looked defeated, perhaps even regretful. Grant, however, avoided my gaze entirely, staring at the table like a scolded schoolboy. I said nothing to either of them. My work was complete, and I had proven exactly what I'd set out to. Usually, when sessions ended, I would stay behind to wrap up with my client and exchange pleasantries with other lawyers, a small gesture of professionalism and respect, regardless of the case's contentiousness. But this time, there was no opportunity. My father and Grant had already gathered their belongings and left without so much as a glance in my direction. No handshake, no acknowledgement, not even a curt "well done." It stung more than I wanted to admit. Even after everything, part of me had hoped for some recognition, some small sign they'd seen my capabilities and respected them. Instead, they walked away silently and defeated, leaving me standing there with unfinished business weighing on my chest. I took a deep breath, brushed it off, and refocused on my client. I had won the case. That was what mattered. That evening back at the firm, my colleagues greeted me with applause as I walked through the doors. Richard was first to approach, clapping my shoulder with a proud grin. "Excellent work, Catherine," he said, raising a champagne glass. "You were flawless in there. That settlement is a significant win for us, and your client couldn't have asked for a better advocate." The team had arranged a small celebration in the break room with drinks and appetizers. My client even stopped by to express gratitude, shaking my hand firmly. "You were incredible, Catherine," they said. "We couldn't have succeeded without you." For the first time that day, I allowed myself to smile. Surrounded by people who valued me for my skills and hard work, I felt an accomplishment no words from my father or Grant could have provided. This was my victory, and I owned it. Later that night, alone in my apartment, city lights filtered through the blinds as I sat by the window with wine. The day's adrenaline had faded, and in the quiet, my thoughts returned to my family. I replayed the courtroom moments, how my father's face tightened with every argument I made, how Grant couldn't meet my eyes when it ended. I had expected anger or defensiveness, but their silence was harder to bear. For years, I had dreamed of earning my father's respect, proving to him I was worthy not just of his name, but of a place in the firm I once idolized. Now, even after winning a case against them, I wasn't sure what I had achieved. Did they finally see me for who I was, or was I just a reminder of their failure? The questions lingered unanswered as I stared at the Dallas skyline, wondering if the ties I'd severed could ever truly heal. The next morning, as I entered the office, the usual buzz of conversation and ringing phones greeted me. I barely had time to settle in before Richard approached with a curious look. "Catherine," he said, his tone cautious but warm, "your father is here. He's waiting in your office." The word stopped me in my tracks. "My father?" I asked, trying to keep my expression neutral though my stomach flipped. Richard nodded. He arrived about 20 minutes ago, said he wanted to speak with you. Take your time, I'll hold your calls. I thanked him, though my mind was already racing as I walked down the hall. When I opened my office door, there he was, Henry Mercer, sitting in the chair across from my desk, his hands clasped tightly in front of him. He looked up as I entered, his expression unreadable, though a slight furrow in his brow betrayed something. Regret, perhaps. "Catherine," he said simply, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard. I closed the door behind me, unsure of what to expect. "Dad," I replied, keeping my tone even. "What brings you here?" He stood slowly, brushing his hands down his suit jacket as though trying to steady himself. "I came here to talk," he said, his tone measured but serious. "To say some things I should have said already." I walked over to my desk, setting my bag down carefully. "All right," I said, folding my arms. "I'm listening." He hesitated, glancing out the window before turning back to me. "You were brilliant in that courtroom, Catherine," he began, his voice softening. "I've seen many lawyers in my time, some of the best in the business, and what you did was remarkable. You were prepared, professional, and relentless. You left no doubt about who the better lawyer was." His words caught me off guard, but I kept my expression steady, waiting for him to continue. "I've spent so much of my life believing that legacy meant maintaining things as they used to be," he said, his voice tinged with regret. "That sons should take over what fathers built. I thought I was doing the right thing, pushing Grant to step up even when I knew deep down he wasn't ready or willing." He ran a hand through his silver hair, sighing deeply. "But I see now that I've been wrong. You've worked harder than anyone, Catherine. You've earned everything you have, and I failed to recognize that. I failed you." I blinked, unsure how to respond. This was the man who had spent years dismissing my ambition, telling me to settle for a life that didn't match my dreams. And now he was standing here, admitting he was wrong. "Why now?" I finally asked, my voice steady but cautious. "Why are you telling me this now, after everything that's happened?" He met my gaze, his blue eyes filled with honesty I hadn't seen before. "Because I saw what you're capable of," he said simply. "And I realized I've been a fool. Grant isn't ready, and he may never be. But you've proven you have what it takes not just to succeed, but to lead." He stepped closer, his tone almost pleading. "Catherine, I'm asking you to come back, to take your rightful place at Mercer and Associates. The firm needs you. I need you." The words hung in the air, and for a moment, I didn't know what to say. I had spent so long fighting for this moment, dreaming of hearing those words from him. But now that they were here, I wasn't sure if I wanted them. "What about Grant?" I asked finally. "What happens to him?" My father's face tightened, and he nodded slowly. "Grant will stay, but he'll take on a role more suited to his skills. This is about you, Catherine, about giving you what you've always deserved." I took a deep breath, letting his words settle for a moment. "I need time to think about this," I said finally, my voice calm but firm. "It's not something I can decide right away. A lot has happened, and I need a few days to figure out what's best for me." My father nodded, his expression serious, but understanding. "Of course," he said. "Take all the time you need. I'm not asking for an answer today, I just needed to say my piece." He moved toward the door, but before leaving, he turned back to face me. "Catherine," he said, his tone softer now, "I know I haven't said this enough, or maybe ever, but I am proud of you. Watching you in that courtroom, you were better than I ever was, better than I could have imagined." His words hit me harder than I expected, and for a moment I just stared at him, unsure how to respond. He gave me a small, almost hesitant smile before turning and walking out of the office, leaving me alone with my thoughts. As I sat at my desk, his words echoed in my mind, better than I ever was. For so long, I had fought to prove myself to him, to show I was more than just his daughter, that I was capable, strong, and deserving of respect. And now, hearing those words, I felt a surge of pride I couldn't ignore. This wasn't just about him anymore. I was proud of myself for standing my ground, for thriving on my own, and for showing the world and my father exactly what I was capable of. Now it's late at night, and I'm lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what to do. My father's offer is everything I've worked for, everything I thought I wanted. But going back would mean stepping into a world where I was once dismissed, where I'd have to navigate the shadows of old wounds and fractured trust. It would mean working alongside Grant, knowing how little he valued what we both stand to represent. And yet staying where I am has its own challenges. This firm has been good to me, and I've grown here in ways I never imagined. But it's not my legacy. It's not Mercer and Associates, the place I dreamed of running since I was a little girl. If I go back, I'd have a chance to shape that legacy on my terms, to prove the name belongs to me just as much as anyone else. I haven't made up my mind yet. The choice feels impossible, and the weight of it keeps me awake. But maybe you can help. What would you do in my situation? Please share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. Hey there! Did you enjoy the story? If you did, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us tremendously and ensures you won't miss out on more great stories we share here. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.